team. I can remember vividly the first day of freshman year as we sat in the auditorium and listened to Mr. Moshe and company explain high school and how it would go. The lockers that would frustrate us, the teachers who would challenge us, and the extracurriculars that would occupy us. It seemed that a world of new experiences was opening in front of us. One thing Mr. Moshe said that day stuck with me. He challenged us to come in each day and take an education, rather than receive one. That stuck with me because for the first time, we had an education that we could control. I mean, sure, we all had to sit through freshman tutorial and fulfill our gym class obligations. But after that, we had control. I felt I had a pretty good idea of what it meant to take an education, but it took me until this year to fully understand it. It means more than just picking your class load and figuring out what you want to do for a career. And though seizing available opportunities is a big part of taking an education, it's not the entire picture. Taking only the chances that present themselves can only get you so far. At a certain point, you need to start making your own opportunities. And that's where you begin to take an education. Making those opportunities is hard. It's not something that's easily taught. It takes passion and commitment to take risks and succeed. That's the most important part of both education and vocation. Passion, finding joy and inspiration in what you've chosen to do. Finding what you care about and acting on it. That's how you take an education. That's how you make your way, not by waiting for someone else to make opportunities for you. Don't wait for someone to tell you that you can. Blaze your own path, write your own story. In the words of Ayn Rand, the question isn't who is going to let me, it's who is going to stop me. Now I'd like to talk about Kevin Bacon. Actually, the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. For those of you unfamiliar with the idea, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is a game where a given actor is connected to another actor by a chain of common actors in films. So if I said Tom Hanks, you might say Apollo 13, a movie featuring both Kevin Bacon and Tom Hanks. Usually it's just a fancy way for film buffs to show off their trivia knowledge, not that I should be criticizing people for showing off trivial knowledge. 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon makes an example of the importance of connections. It demonstrates how interconnected we all are, how quickly you can get from point A to point B with the right connections. That's one of the things that has become abundantly clear to me in these past 4 years, how important those connections are. We all have many people to thank for where we are today. Those connections, though simple, are immensely important in each day of our lives, and often enough aren't appreciated. Consider everybody who's influenced in some way or another where we are today. Parents, teachers, and counselors spring to mind. Others are less obvious. The friend who drags you into something new. The coach who pushes you to do the best that you can. The influence these people have on our lives cannot be understated. And as we move on with our lives, we must continue to appreciate and develop these connections. And I would be remiss if I did not mention at least a few from my past 4 years. Mrs. Bell and Mr. Norton, your classes forced me to break out of a very rigid mindset. It's been pointed out that our class doesn't really like ambiguity. We like clear-cut and concrete answers. But that does not always mix well with literature and life. Learning to break from that attitude was a difficult task, and I'm sure we annoyed you both by resisting giving in to the ambiguity. Fortunately, you both stuck by us until we succeeded. You made clear the lesson that the pen is indeed mightier than the sword. Mr. Gary, you've been a part of my education in math for 3 years, the longest any teacher has worked with me, and you managed not to throttle me, which is admirable. In 3 years, you piqued my curiosity in mathematics, and you threw in some important life and career advice. One time, you intently listened to me babble for at least 15 minutes about a new technique for integrating multivariable differential equations, encouraging my learning even though it had little to do with the current class material. And if you've never seen someone demonstrate math techniques, it's not exactly a spectator sport. But that's what makes you a good educator. You're truly interested in what you teach, and you can inspire that interest in others. Thank you for being an integral part of my education. See what I did there? That's true. Mr. Roy, coach, mentor, an AP chemistry and physics teacher extraordinaire. You've had quite the impact on my life in the past 4 years. You've made me a vandal. Yes, Mr. Morrill, I take credit for destroying that blast shield. The experiment was my idea. In my defense, I didn't figure there'd be that much fire. But hey, for a controlled explosion inside a soup can held down by a cinder block, it worked out pretty well. Vandal or not, Mr. Roy, you've given me a great many opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. You've done the hardest part of teaching. You've inspired me. On the cross-country course, on the track, in the classroom, and in my college pursuits, you've driven me to be the best that I can be. You supported my curiosities and my desire to learn. Even simple things like letting me set fire to things, which is more productive than it sounds. Mr. Roy, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me this past 4 years. I hope your future students recognize how great a teacher you are. I know I certainly have. As we start this next stage of our lives, we should continue to strive to make these important connections, surrounding ourselves with the people who contribute to the quality of our lives. Challenges can be made much more attainable with the right people. Failures can be taken more easily, and accomplishments can feel all the more victorious. I'm going to shamelessly steal Mr. Moshe's challenge and extend it again to the graduating class of 2017. Go out into the world, find what you're passionate about, and make your own opportunities. Thank you.